Directors, you ready to be directed?
I guess.
Maybe not.
Oh no, he's not troublesome. So first, straight into it. Why do you direct, and what made you want to make film, TV, or digital content? And that's to the floor.
Well,
You can go first.
well, actually, I think you should go first. To be honest.
Okay. Well, I direct because I enjoy telling stories, and actually that's something I didn't realise until recently.
Mm-hmm.
I did an interview with a friend of mine in a magazine that he runs, and he told me in school I used to be a storyteller. So it's like something will happen in my area, I'll run to school and say, this and that happened. So he said it's just funny how everything's full circle, and I'm actually making a living out of that now. So I guess I would say that's why I direct, but I only realised that
Recently.
Correct. Like the realisation dropped that, oh wow, like I enjoy doing this because I like telling stories. So.
Yeah, I'm the same. I started off doing lots of creative writing at school and writing all these adventure stories, and then I liked photography and drama. And I was always the boy in the school play because it was a girls' school. And but then I discovered sort of filmmaking, and it seemed to take storytelling further in that you could take the words off the page and you made it come to life with actors. And so it was this kind of, it was playing but on a bigger scale, and that's kind of what directing is. So it was like 3D storytelling.
Is there an element of being a control freak?
Yes.
Because you could have chosen any of the elements of telling a story,
Sure.
but you chose to be the
director.
person that tells. Yeah, directs.
I think a little bit, yeah. I can remember when I was like in my drama class, and all I'd do was take over and always be the one who had to be in control. So I think a bit of it came from that. But I also like to be really immersed in a world and kind of learn about a world, or like kind of just, kind of really put myself in the world and then see it come to life. So I think that's a bit of it as well.
I think mine came from a different place. I use a lot of things that maybe don't go the way that they are supposed to then fuel what I want to do. And I think I was always just wanting to be an actor at first. And I would write stories, and my stories were very descriptive, and I was writing scripts. I found handwritten scripts that I used to write at home when I was like 11, 12 and stuff like that. And then I just kept writing, telling stories. And then when people started directing my stories, I'd be looking at them sideways like, you ain't doing that right. Like, you're not doing it right. And particularly like some of the early stories were based on my experiences of growing up. I was looking at people not really doing them the way that they were, or other people doing stories about my area and watching people stand up and go, that was wonderful, and me going, that's not real. And so then I decided from that point on that I would try and direct. Once I was given the opportunity, that's how it came from me. And I've always loved film since I was little, and TV, and it just kind of sparked it from there. And then I realised that the way I'm going to tell my stories, the way I want them told, is by me directing them.
Hey! Stop it!
What's happening?
Babe, I'm parked on a red line and there's some traffic warden trying to give me a ticket.
Really? Let me speak to him.
Huh?
Let me speak to him. So where is he then?
Hello? Hello, madam.
Oh, why are you giving my husband a ticket at 4 a.m?
Are you stupid? I work the night shift. He's parked in the wrong place.
Listen, don't call me stupid, yeah? What night shift are you talking about?
Hey, listen, don't talk to my wife like that. What are you going to do? Yo, don't test me, you know. Are you going to assault me?
Babe, just leave it, yeah? He's an asshole, just move the car.
Okay, baby. Sorry, reception, babe. I gotta go. See you later. Bye.
Henry, oi! If you're...
Is that a thing when you're not seeing your stories told as well? You're saying that, people are directing your stories, or the authentic story, not the way that you would tell it. That's not authentic to you. Do any of you guys feel like that's a reason why as well? Because we're having this conversation about representation and authenticity as directors. Is that another reason why you're like, we've got to tell our stories? Is that a passion, a driving force?
Definitely.
Yeah. I mean, actually, I always say that film found me more than anything, because I think I came from Nigeria when I was about 12 years old, and I came down, and I remember just being in this space that was, I left a place that was incredibly black to a place that was incredibly white. So I just felt incredibly uncomfortable there, and then I just thought everyone just called me African boy, you know, in school, and I was like, I don't understand why you call me African boy when you're black like me. You know, it was mostly black people, and I thought, okay, my accent was very African, so let me just watch films to try and change that. You know, so I basically just watched British films. I watched all kinds of films, and I was watching films that weren't really about me. They were about sort of white people. Love film like that, but I realized that I had to basically realize that my worth was in myself. Once film finds you, it takes over, you know, and it basically, you know, I realized that film was my life's calling ultimately. So.
Ṣé Daddy Jeremiah wá sí church lẹ́ni ṣá? Wọ́n wá sí church ẹ́. Ṣé rí mọ́mì, a máa wá sọ́dọ̀ yín lálẹ́. A máa ká àwọn oúnjẹ àtàwọn kankan díẹ̀ wá.
Ẹ wò ó, mo dúpẹ́. Ṣùgbọ́n ẹ má ṣe yọnu. Oúnjẹ pọ̀ lóríṣiríṣi ẹ ṣe.
No, mọ́mì, ó di dandan. Ó di dandan, a gbọ́dọ̀ wá.
Pastor, good morning.
Joy.
It's good to see you. I've been trying to call your phone, but it's been going to voicemail.
Oh, look, I'm so sorry I missed your calls. It's been such a busy week for me.
Yeah, I understand.
So in that, talking about telling a story that's authentic to yourselves, you, Koby, you told a story in Ghana, and the story is actually quite tricky because it depicts, it's called House Girl, and it depicts a madam who's running she's not treating her staff very well. Was there any pressure that you're telling a story from Ghana, from the jump, that people might be sensitive towards? 100%. And I might direct that to you, Noel, as well, talking about the kidulthood trilogy.
Look, I think every story you're going to tell is sensitive, right? And I think if you tell a story that doesn't hit a nerve, then you're not really serving its purpose. I think I make films to tell a story to get people thinking, right? To get people exploring, to get people looking deeper into a matter than they would have. So like House Girl, for example, of course I got why is your lead mixed race? Why can't she be black? Of course I got what was it I get? I got all sorts. It's not all Africans. No, everyone treats house girls like that. I didn't say they did. You know, the story set in this one house. I didn't show 10 houses with house girls getting abused. Do you get where I'm coming from? So I think it's about just sticking to your guns really and just understanding what story you're telling and what perspective you have. And again, my lead is a British girl coming to Ghana for the first time. So actually I'm more than qualified to tell that story. That is my experience.
I'm sure, Noel, you've come into criticism a lot for depicting the street story, as it were. And have you been, what's your take on it? Why did you want to tell those stories?
Because that was my experience. For years, I've battled with things people have said about what they perceive as negative connotations with the films, and how people have looked down upon me. Even people within our own community, actors, how they look down upon me and stuff because my films are not worthy. But there's two truths. One is the films did not inform society. Society informed the films. Any things that could be seen as stereotypes in there are, I talked about it earlier with these guys about stereotypes a lot of times come from fact. The reason stereotypes of young black men not having black fathers is because a lot of black fathers weren't around. That was my experience and a lot of my friends' experiences. With the kidulthood thing, the idea was all about the experience that I lived. Just because it wasn't other people's experience, it doesn't mean it wasn't mine. And just because those kids behaved like that for that day, it doesn't mean we were saying all kids behave like that. But the film was always meant to be a film about, if you behave like this is what could happen, because that's the truth of it. Friends of mine got sent down for 25 years for things. Friends of mine did robberies and stuff, and I was always that guy that wasn't involved in it, but that was the film, that was the story that I wanted to tell. And actually, it's taken me a lot of years to kind of come to terms with the fact that some people just don't get it, and what they don't realize is actually that film and what it achieved outside of what the story was has opened so many doors for other people to do so many other things that actually overrides anything that people could say about the actual project itself.
Sure. So Dionne, tell us about We Love Moses, which is it's through the lens of a young girl. It tells the bigger story of black boy masculinity and sexuality, and that's another thing about telling a story that the audience might have a negative reaction to, especially when it's depicting a marginalised group and also a sensitive group who are protective of how they're portrayed. Why did you want to tell that story, and what was your process in getting to that?
I think that for me, sort of as a black queer filmmaker, there's also that side, those kinds of stories that aren't really looked at, and it's again sort of me speaking about my experience of my friends, and I think it's just a story that really needs to be told. And I'm really interested in kind of deconstructing masculinity and femininity. I think it's like, for me, it's really interesting the way we kind of have boxes, and people are kind of told that, people kind of conditioned to think that they need to behave a certain way because they're a man, and they need to behave a certain way because they're a woman. And for me, that makes for a really interesting drama.
And Christiana, you told, you did the short film Some Sweet Oblivious Antidote, and essentially at the heart of it is a young girl traumatised because of her absent father. Is there a need as a black filmmaker to tell a difficult narrative but in a more original way, so that people don't come and pigeonhole you and say you're just representing us in a negative way, we're always telling these dramatic stories, but you use Shakespeare as a way to get this girl's story across?
I hadn't really seen that story of, which was partly my story of, you know, a young girl that just missed her dad, and you know, that story of, you know, that kind of black story, you know, that was tender, and that a young girl is sort of daydreaming, and maybe she imagines that, you know, she reads a lot, and it could be Shakespeare, it could be anything else, and I wanted those sorts of stories about young black girls or black people where we're dreaming and we're kind of seeing the world as a magical place, and the world is warm, and I wanted to tell a different type of story, and it just happened that we wrapped it around Shakespeare because we applied for some funding that was about Shakespeare, so it was then telling a personal story within that framework, but I was really keen to try and tell different types of black stories that I didn't feel that we get a chance to see very often.
And Thomas, in your film The Right Choice, another short film, it's quite political, the topics that you cover. One, can you break it down quickly? And also, again, was there any of that thinking in, it's political, it's sensitive, and how has it been received from the audience?
It's been very interesting because that film, I made that film 3 years ago, and you know, as I said, I watched films that weren't really about me, you know, and it was strange because I thought I lived in London, but all these films were mostly had white characters in it, so I couldn't see myself in them. So I realized that I had to make films that were really about me, but it's trying to get those films made isn't always easy. So with The Right Choice, that film was very clear in its sort of goal, which is to capture black characters as the main people in a story, you know, but also make it very sort of like unsettling, make it very hard to watch sometimes. You know, I love Black Mirror. You know, Black Mirror is brilliant, but I think even Black Mirror, we don't see that much of black narratives are the center of it. You know, we're always sort of there, but we're not always the main narratives there ultimately. So I thought I wanted to make a film where the black characters were the main people there, but ultimately make work that makes you think about things. You know, I love films that makes you uncomfortable, films that make you cry, films that make you question your very existence in this world. You know, I don't want to make films that are, I mean, films is a commercial medium, undoubtedly, yes, but equally I think films are meant to make you think. All the films I love, you know, I will go and thinking, that's freaking depressing, or that's messed up, you know, it basically makes you think. And when we played Sundance last year with the film's a very black film, and you know, there was a mostly white audience, so they weren't very happy with the themes in it, you know, because this film is about two black couples that want to create the perfect baby. So they can choose the baby's eyes, hairs, you know, skin tone as well, which is also very touchy. But they weren't very comfortable with the themes. They felt that I was trying to make a propaganda film, you know, because it was about black people, it's about black themes, and in the film, people were very clearly uncomfortable because, you know, undoubtedly they'll go home and they'll talk about it. And ultimately, film is an incredible medium because you have a platform where you can convey ideas that you can discuss. Okay. You know, and I always say I'm lucky that I make films because I can express myself, you know, express what it means to be a black man in 2019.
So on the back of you saying you like films and work that challenge you, can any of you guys offer up some productions or films that you've watched that really challenged you and something that have really impacted you as filmmakers?
That's a good question.
Sorry.
That's one of those deep questions. I'm like, oh.
I love Atlanta. I think that's kind of, on the one hand, feels like quite accessible going in, and it's funny, but then some of the themes in it are really uncomfortable, and there's some like really difficult moments in it. So yeah, that's a show that, and Donald Glover is like a big favourite of mine.
Okay. Actually, looking at Atlanta, what is it? How do you watch it as a director? Maybe also throw that in your answers as well.
I think for me, I watch it because there's a certain craft there that I think we rarely see in British sort of TV shows, and I think the craft is evident. It's evident in the way it's shot, in the acting, in everything, and it makes you, it encapsulates you into this world that is so different from anything I know. You know, these are black characters in America, but I haven't seen this kind of black people before. You know, but also it's the language that the film uses to tell its stories, because it's incredibly funny, but it's incredibly depressing as well. You know, so it's dark. It is funny. It makes you think as well, but it does it in a very sort of like a subtle way, which I think it's not on the nose. It's not in your face, which I think is incredibly hard to do.
Tomisin mentioned Black Mirror. I think that definitely had a huge impact on me, actually. I think it's just what I mostly get from Black Mirror is how to deconstruct what you expect, if you know what I mean. It's sort of like they sort of put this proposition in front of you, which isn't actually that far-fetched if you think about it. And I think the way they go about telling those stories is what intrigues me the most. You know, the sort of creative decisions they make. You know, some of them blew my mind. You know, sort of like, I don't remember any specifics, but it's just while you're watching it, just think to yourself, like, how effective was that, you know, in comparison to the reason why they were doing it. So I think Black Mirror as, you know, a body of work really, really took me elsewhere. It really actually made me challenge myself as a filmmaker and think, you know, if someone can think so intelligently and in such deep layers, you see what I'm saying to you, then I need to keep going with my own narratives, because my own stories can go that far.
Where's the bag?
This look like a trap house to you, boy.
I need that bag.
Little boy, the bag gone. It dashed away. Police come here today, you know. And me help you. Do. Don't make me call them and come take you.
Yeah, you need to be careful, mate. Children come in here as well, you know.
Kids of these days, eh? No common sense. Run, my boy. Leave the shop.
It's interesting that I asked about film and you both suggested TV shows. Is that a mark of how TV has become the new film, as it were? The new benchmark? Or
I still think there's filmmakers like Barry Jenkins, I think, is on fire right now. There's a lot of filmmakers, but I think TV is where there's a lot more money, and I think I don't know, maybe or maybe not. I don't know.
Is that what it is?
I don't know if that's the case in the UK. I mean, like
it is.
It's
yeah. I think. Sorry, I was trying to think what challenged me when you asked that, because I don't know. But then you mentioned Moonlight. Moonlight, I think was interesting and challenged me in a way, as did 12 Years a Slave, because I look at those films and I think about the themes, and then I try and think, well, actually, yeah, all right, we're making films, i.e. we're playing the flute, but what's really changed though? Do you know what I mean? Yeah. But what's really changed? And I think that sometimes when you look at it on a deeper level, not a lot has changed. Do you know what I mean?
From what aspect? What hasn't changed?
We're still working for the man, as it were.
Okay.
There's very few of us that have control of our own destiny still, even now. And I think that actually, I look at that film in particular, and it just, I left there, with a lot of white friends going, oh yeah, it's terrible, it's awful, and I'm like, but it's kind of the same, it's not, and then I look at Moonlight and I look at the fact that, this guy had to really hide who he was, hide his sexuality and all that kind of stuff, and that hasn't changed either. I mean, Moonlight is not a period film, it's like, it's recent, but that still happens. A lot. I spoke to someone this morning who said that their brother can't tell the mum that they're bisexual. Do you know what I mean? So those things challenge me, because I look at that and I go, all right, well, Moonlight came out, so therefore that should spark conversation, and maybe it has in some circles, but generally, I don't think it's really that challenges me because I'm like, well, film is supposed to spark conversations and create change. Our TV film, what we do, what we create as storytellers and put out there is supposed for people to go, oh man, I never thought about that, and then start thinking about it. But actually, I think nowadays, and it used to, I think a lot more, but nowadays, because there are so many mediums and there's so many things where you can watch a film and you're about to say, man, that's deep, and then YouTube's on and you're looking at that, or Snapchat's on and you're looking at that. People don't spend the time process anymore, so therefore I think less is changing in that way.
But then, sorry to interrupt, it's just you think about a film like Do the Right Thing, and it's kind of scary that actually that applies today as well.
That's right.
It's not really changed from there either. So.
But we processed that, like we processed that. If that came out now, the kids would be like, watch it, but like, yo, that was distracted by something else.
So then,
someone was balancing a dog on their nose. Look, do you know what I mean?
We were just crying, and now we're happy and laughing.
Can I just say, for me, Beale Street Could Talk.
Yes.
That just blew me away when I saw that. Just the beauty, black love, and then the political world that they lived in that's still apparent today and that we still experience. But it just seeing black love felt like something we're not shown before. We're not allowed to. It's not represented on screen. Just these people loving each other, and to see that as a kind of delicate, that black people can have that emotion,
gentle and intimate, and
like the white love that we usually are
the hate you give.
with.
The hate you give is another one. Sorry.
And that's quite similar to Some Sweet Oblivion in the beauty of telling a harrowing story, but setting it in a different way that it's not the typical. So then, what's the biggest challenge you guys face as filmmakers and TV makers, content creators, I should say?
I think it's more about just like being myself and owning it. You know what I'm saying? If I'm going to tell a story, I need to tell the story. I'm going to cheat a little bit because I'm going to say Goodfellas for the previous question.
Okay.
But it runs into this question as well. I think it's sort of like what I get from Goodfellas is I watch Martin Scorsese tell a story about a community and a group of people he knows inside out, and being unapologetic about that community. If they use the N-word there, that's what happened in Brooklyn at that time, if you know what I mean. And it's about writing my own script and not shying away from the things that happen, which will be looked at as, oh, why are you writing about that? If you know what I mean, why are you showing this on the screen? Because it happened. Do you get where I'm coming from? I think Noel mentioned something earlier. It's like someone else telling your story. They miss those bits out. They miss those bits out. And I think every time I watch someone like Martin Scorsese and his films, I feel challenged, right? I feel challenged to be a man, right? And go back and, you know what I mean? Like, go tell those flipping bits that everyone's scared of putting on screen. So I think, So is that a challenge as a filmmaker? That's your challenge? For sure. It's my own personal challenge. It's not challenge, like, I don't see external challenges personally. Like, I think if anything outside of me, I think can't stop me. I feel like if I put my brain somewhere and say I'm going to do this, I'm going to do it. But I think internally are my own, you know what I mean? Those are the challenges that I acknowledge, if you know what I mean. And it's about, Koby, are you being yourself?
Sorry, I think there are still obstacles because it's things like, for example, you take Bulletproof, for example, right?
Your new series.
Yeah. Ashley and I took about 6 years to get that up and running, 6 or 7 years to get that up and running. And the problem was systematic of what had been the problem for the previous 20 years. So Ashley and I met each other in 1999, probably on a short film. And then we never worked together again, really, since then. Like I tried to do a TV series called West London LDN in like 2000, which did a pilot, and we kind of had scenes in that which I had created with Hoods. But here's the interesting thing was, we were consciously and subconsciously kept apart by the industry. So for example, you get a film and there's 10 characters, they can have 9 white people or whatever like that. But then once I had Ashley, it's like, we don't need another one. We never worked together again because it was like, once he was doing something, they didn't need me. They didn't look that we could be 2 different people. We could be 2 different things. The same thing they do with like gay characters and all that. You go, well, this guy's here, he's playing this one, they're both gay. Well, hold on, do we need 2 of them? So they're different people. So that was the issue. So then even when we started getting the show together, I literally sat in meetings where people would say to me, great, 2 cops, brilliant, one of you has to be white. That's the only way this show's ever going to get made. One of you has to be white. And I was like, well, that's not happening. It's either both of us or you can bury me with it, like it's not happening. And we got to that point, and what I realized is, it's not that everyone is like against us. It's like sometimes there's a bit of like, they cannot differentiate, because they don't know about us, they don't know about our experiences, they cannot differentiate that we can be two separate people. And that led into the casting. When we created the show, we wanted to make sure that Ashley's character had a black wife, and not a light-skinned wife, like a black wife, right, who's a lawyer and blah, 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 blah. Now, during the casting process, we said, this is what we're doing. They were like, but why does it matter that she's dark-skinned? Why can't it just be, you know, we've got all these actresses coming in, some are mixed, some are light-skinned, and, you know, why does it matter? We don't see colour.
Of course.
Now, this is people trying to help, I get it, but they're trying to help so much, they're like, we don't see colour. We just want to have colour-free casting. I'm like, we understand that, because we fought for that for years, but you need to understand this. Is like, black women are not represented enough on screen. We as black unit, as families, are not represented positively enough on screen. This character is going to be black. And we had to fight them on that. But you know what? When the show came out, and you had two positive black men, I think it's the first show where there's two black male, sort of alpha male leads, where we're not drug dealers or not whatever, we're police officers. And he's got a dark-skinned wife who's a lawyer. We've had people come up to us in the street and be like, listen, I woke my girls up when that show came on. I said, I can't show them the whole show because you lot like to swear and there's a bit of batty and this, that and the other. But the scene with Ashley and his wife in the bath and all that, I woke my girls up and or you lot in the kitchen in the morning, I said, look, our family's normal. And that is what we were trying to achieve, that they couldn't understand. But, you know, I think there are still those sorts of battles, differentiating the fact that we can both be in the same project as actors. If you was an actor, we could both be in the same project. We're not the same person. It's just, you know what I mean?
So jumping in for women,
I think,
Dionne and Christiana,
I think it's
what's your
about
challenge?
Getting access to the funding, and talking about other filmmakers, Scorsese, whatever, they get to make film after film after film after film, and it's really difficult as a black female filmmaker to go forward with your project, whatever, and be seen again separately to other black filmmakers. Oh, we've got one of those. Oh, we're doing that this year. Oh, we've got. So again, there's not as many opportunities unless you've got access to the money to fund things yourself. And most of us don't. You know, if you're from a kind of working class background or whatever, you don't have a big enough network to know, oh yeah, let me go and see Bob over there. They're going to give me the money to do this. So I find that is quite. That's a stumbling block, really.
And Dionne, does gender come into play?
I'm not sure if it's sort of me imagining things, but I do think there's sometimes not being taken seriously. There's that thing where, say, I'm kind of working in the project and maybe the trust isn't there, or there's sort of, I'm being kind of spoken down to at some points, or maybe there's a lot of sort of micromanaging in the way. And I don't know whether that's because I'm relatively new on the scene or whatever, but yeah, I don't know if gender comes into play there.
And you shadowed Ronaldo Marcus Green on Top Boy recently. Yeah. And that's was that a scheme that you came in on? That was
part of a Netflix scheme. Just sort of shadowing directors. I shadowed him on the first block of the series. That was fine. I was just relaxing, watching him be all stressed and just kind of getting in people's way on set. So.
But then for that, are schemes helpful? Pause.
It's hard to say. Maybe. I mean, I did a scheme called 4 Stories, which is Channel 4's thing to get directors their first kind of TV parts, and they give you some mentoring and stuff. And yeah, I think it's opened up some doors, but what you really want to do is be getting to work on the shows and kind of making the films, writing the scripts, and being taken seriously as well.
I'm not hungry.
Len just made that for you. Fucking eat it.
Stop fucking swearing at her, man. She's only little.
You just swore, fam.
At you, fam. And why are you calling me fam all the fucking time like I'm your mate? I'm not your fucking mate.
How are you telling me to stop swearing when you keep chatting like that around her?
Mum works nights, so Michael's always looking after me. Lanique, Michael's wifey, she was always helping out.
Dickhead in front of my little sister.
How are you trying to chat to me like this?
Listen, I don't need this. I've got maths today.
Maths?
Stop shouting at me.
Wow, maths.
Right. Where's Mike?
He was so fucking buff.
What? Go on, fighter. Did you say? Huh?
Have any of you guys done?
Yeah.
Sorry.
BAFTA Elevate was the thing I did most recent for female directors, and that it's not training, but it was people coming in and talking to us, and it was just a spotlight on us, really, kind of saying to industry, there are these 15 women out here that, you know, are ready for high-end features. What are you doing? And so I felt the spotlight of that. It was just easier to get kind of meetings, and people kind of knew who you were, because before there's lots of, let's say, BBC commissioners, who say the talent's not out there, and so there's always this kind of theory that there are not enough female directors out there, we can't find any. So that was a challenge, and I've done some other things, schemes as well, but that, although it was not training, it was just light, and it helped.
I did the same thing as Dionne on Top Boy.
Okay.
And I think the answer to that question for me, I think it just depends on where you're at in your career.
Okay.
I think for me, it was super helpful, because after that, I went straight to do a block of TV, and I realised how that helped me, because there's certain things that I didn't know. Should I have not have known?
Helpful.
Do you know what I mean? Should I not have known those before I landed my next job? Would have been a taller mountain to climb, if you know what I mean. So I was glad when I was sort of like handling my own block of TV, and then Top Boy, things were replaying themselves again. I'm like, okay, yeah, I know what to do now. You know what I mean? Yeah, I can, and I know, and as well, I think it helps getting your team to trust you as well earlier on, so you can just get to the nitty gritty of making something you know you can make in the way you want to make it. I think it was useful to go there and have those conversations that I need to have now, because before I didn't have a clue. I'll be honest with you, I'll be very transparent here. Like the different coloured scripts, for example, you know, like the blue, green, whatever, do you know what I mean? Like the job that I just did.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, exactly. So it's basically like script, so after you got your shooting script locked in, what you do is, if there's any changes thereafter.
Pink pages, green pages.
Pink pages, green, whatever. So I was so confused. I didn't actually pay attention to any of the colours. I just knew that, you know, when someone comes to hand me a coloured, but I said, oh, another script change, you know? So it's like, you know, the company I'm working with now, fantastic company, but there's a lot of script changes. Should I not have seen that on Top Boy, that could have buried me. I mean, I could have drowned in like what's going on and etc. etc. So I think the schemes, depending on where you are in your career and what scheme it is, can be useful, but not all of them. I don't think they're all useful.
Is Film London a scheme, would you say?
Yeah.
So Film London,
That's
I mean, we've all,
one.
you didn't do Film London?
Calling Plus.
Yeah, you did it?
Plus, yeah.
Okay, because I feel like that's been instrumental with all of us,
Huge,
in launching.
You guys are lucky, I had no schemes.
What to say?
I'm an OG, man. Yeah, there was no
this one out. Yeah,
there was no schemes.
Wow.
There were no schemes, you know what I mean? Everything was just like learn on the job kind of thing, and so I'm almost envious of these guys.
Having the support.
Yeah, having the support. I had no support.
Sure.
Well, I was the same. I had no support, and then suddenly in recent years, there's some schemes that now I was applying to all the tiny little things and just getting knocked back. And then in the last sort of 4 or 5 years, there's schemes, and they seem to be looking for people like me now. It's like, what happened? What changed? And I think it's the environment that's changed, and they're just saying that they're more diverse.
But I think equally as well, though, I've applied to at least 8 schemes and I haven't gotten any of them.
Okay.
So for me, you know, I think it's great you guys have definitely done that, and I've applied to. I mean, I made for EastEnders twice, to shortlist the final 5 people for Doctors twice. You know, so I haven't gotten into any scheme. So for me, I've got a love-hate sort of bond with them.
Okay.
The thing is, you know, I walked into an interview once for the scheme, and there was like 12 black directors. And I know that there's only one of us who's going to get the job. And they're all equally talented.
There can't be 2, man.
Exactly.
We've got one now.
Yeah, no, and I was just impressed. I was like, you know, I mean, I even know.
Treat us like we're Highlander. There can only be one. Yeah.
So it's definitely sad, and I think these schemes, they're definitely the answer in some respect, but they're also not the answer. You need to hire people that are right for the job, but also that can do the job. I don't want to, you know, being there just because I'm a black guy, so it's a black scheme. I want to be there because I'm a talented
good film
director,
of course.
you know, and that's what's sad is you question if they're hiring you because you're black or because you're talented, you know, and then there's a lot of hatred around you because he's only here because of the scheme. I want to be here because I am a good director, and I'm always having to fight for that.
Because there's a lot of that now, with a lot of companies just scrambling to find people to tick their box. You know what I mean? No, it's because we value you. You know what I mean?
And then you don't work again for a long time.
But for me, I'm not bothered by that. I don't go in feeling guilty like, oh, I've got the job because I'm black. Like, for so long, I've been out in the cold, held back, whatever, not considered. So basically, all I'm thinking is, now it's my time. It's just an open door I'm going through, and I'm going to make that opportunity count, and I'm going to get the next thing. So, and other people have said, oh, you know, a lot of white male directors are really upset right now. Is there something we could do to? I was like, no, don't care. They've had their time. This is not about putting them out in the cold. It's just trying to get some equality. So if they feel bad, tough, because you know, stand in my shoes for however many years and figure out there's no work, there's no nothing. Now there's just a little chance and taking it.
But Tomisin, actually, though you haven't maybe been through any schemes, The Right Choice has screened in over 35 international film festivals, including Oscar qualifying Pan-African Film Festival, Cleveland International Film Festival.
Crazy.
I'll add to that by saying that I've paid my own money to all those festivals.
Right.
I spent £6,000 in the past 3 years on festivals.
Okay.
So, and I've applied to over 500 festivals, but I haven't gotten into 300.
Okay.
You know, so it's you know, it's all great having all this accolades, you know, playing in Sundance, playing in all these big festivals, but you know, it's all my hard-earned job and my day job. You know, the money that I've saved up. No one's saying, Tomisin, here's 1K for a festival fund. It's all me. So it's and nobody sees that, you know, unfortunately.
So I was going to say though, then what is the importance? Because taking that amount of money to put your stuff into film festivals, what is the importance of having your work for everybody at a film festival? And is there a holy grail of film festivals that can have a positive impact on your career?
It's a thing.
For
me, getting into TIFF, you know, or sort of being affiliated with Sundance, it does open up a lot of doors because it's a sort of validation thing. But at the same time, I feel like the internet, you know, if you think about someone like Ssebandeke with her YouTube channel, like with Strolling and Akin Saltfish, that can launch you now as well, or like Coyote or, you know, people like that. So, yeah, it's a balance.
I mean, I guess I agree. I think it's so true. But my last short film, it got the validation because Film London, you know, etc., and it got chosen to screen at London Film Festival. But I surely started working after that, so I didn't have the time, you know, like me and Tomisin used to do, and stay up all night applying to festivals. You see what I'm saying to you, and getting rejected by everybody, right? I just cracked on and went to go and work. But I realised that actually it's because of this short film that I made that showed that I can do this job. So actually I got progress about, you know what I mean, sort of going to all these festivals I thought I needed to go to for my career to sort of like go from there. Because after the back of the job I have now I'm having the conversations I want to make the feature I want to make. You know, I'm not making a film to step up to my feature. I'm making exactly what I want to make without getting into a million festivals. You know, like Haircut, the film that I made, got into 2, you know, and that was that. So I think
never got into another festival.
You know,
the Brotherhood was the Brotherhood. The last one was the first one to get into anything. That was in TIFF. That was the first one, and that's like I was 15 years in.
I was going to ask you because the Black Star film event in 2016, I was there.
You were there.
I was there.
If you got a T-shirt, I was there.
You was there.
I was watching your panel.
But you, and I supported you in what you said. You actually called out the programmers. That's no disrespect to the programmers, but however, you did say there's an oversight for not having your work involved in the program.
So so they had the Black Star event where they talked about, they were celebrating black British films and general black talent generally, and they had me up on the panel with Amma and David and blah blah blah. They showed a list of the top 10 films, in the last 10 years that had black talent in them, and 4 of the top 10 were my films.
Yeah.
And they were like 3, 4, 5, and 7, and 1 and 2 were Mandela and Selma, right? Which you could argue were studio movies because they're Pathé, you could argue. Then they had the top 10 black actors that had been in the most British films in the last 10 years, and I was top of the list. So they put me on the panel. They have the 2 lists in which I'm topping the list, blah, blah, blah. But yet they hadn't programmed any of my films throughout their whole 6-week festival. And that's about classism as well. That's not about being black. That's about, like, as I said earlier, that's about people in the industry looking down upon the fact that my films are social commentaries and they're not worthy. That's why they don't get into festivals. That's why bougie actors and bougie directors and other people go, well, why doesn't he tell stories about doctors? You know what? You know why there's stories about doctors now? Because Kiddo had opened the doors for black stories on a mainstream level. You know, you look at the Joe Cornish interview and you Google it, you'll find it. Joe Cornish, who did Attack the Block, said he was inspired by Kiddohood. So without Kiddohood, there's no Attack the Block, i.e. certain superstars that we have now may not have the careers they have with that, but nobody wants to look at my film or what we did. They want to look at the next level, and that's what I'm trying to say is like that it was a perfect example of the BFI and all those people that have always treated me a certain way, and not just me. I can be a signpost because obviously I've been a lot more successful than some of my peers in that regard, but not just me, but look down upon us because we're working class, and that even though we're black, we're not the kind of black that they want. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
Well, I'm the field brother. I'm not the house brother. I'm the field brother. And that is what they didn't want. They want the house boy that they can be like, yo, dance and entertain my guests and all that. Whereas I'm like, I ain't dancing. And that's the truth of it as well. So you have all those issues too.
So is that...
Can I ask a question?
Yeah,
This is, I want to know from your perspective, right? Do you think that has changed from before, or do you think that this still needs a vast amount of...
Yeah, you're the example of it changing.
Okay.
You know, and again, like, you're there because of your talent, but at the same time, they're like, who can we find that street?
Sure.
You know, Rapman's an example of it changing.
Sure.
Do you know what I mean?
I guess I asked that question because one thing that I always made sure, or I charged myself with, was to be myself.
Yeah.
You know, like I walk into these meetings at the BFI or Film 4 or BBC Films wearing what I want to wear.
Yeah, of course.
Like I was on set for the job I just did, wearing tracksuits.
As you should, but I'm saying like,
you know what I'm saying?
As you should, but I'm saying like, when I was doing it like 15 years ago, it was like they didn't know how to handle it. Now it's been seen a few times, so they can go, you know, and that doesn't necessarily mean they still know how to cope, but they'll try. They'll be like, all right, hi, yeah, so supermodel, do-rag, great, okay, well, let's how do you want to sit? Do you know what I mean? It's that sort of thing,
I feel you.
where they're kind of doing it in a sort of like,
I feel you.
If we don't let one in, someone else is going to do it. And what we don't want is one of them to be successful again without us.
Well, I think the gatekeepers aren't us. So how do you become the gatekeeper?
I am a gatekeeper. I become. That was one of the things. How do you become a gatekeeper? How do you beat the gatekeepers? You become one. You know, we've done 13 movies. We've got our TV company now. We're making shows. Bulletproof is one of our shows. We've got another show that's going to be announced for Channel 5. You're still at the percent of the broadcasters and at other execs, you know. But my mentality always like, so we started doing a TV company, and very soon you come up against a broadcaster and they're like, no, we're not making that show, we're not making that show, we're not making that show. And you're like, this TV thing is tough. So my immediate thing was like, well, we need our own TV channel. Every time I come up against one of those things, I'm like, all right, well.
I'll make one.
Yeah. If I always have to take my stuff to production companies for TV, like, well, I need to have a production company.
Sure.
You say that with ease.
No, it's not.
No, that's what I'm saying. I was about to say then how, because someone was looking like, well, you're Noel Clarke. And I know you weren't Noel Clarke 15 years ago. However, for everybody that's listening to Noel, like, well, how, are you thinking, yeah, but, and what is your but? I faced this, I faced that.
Absolute tenacity. There's no answer. Like, it's easy to, obviously people go, yeah, but you're Noel Clarke. I wasn't.
Yeah.
I wasn't. And as I said, no awards, no festivals, no support. To this day, none of them are giving me any money. So it's not about, it's possible. It's possible. You just have to battle and just not take no for an answer.
I mean, can I just add to that? Because obviously we can all learn from what we've done. You see what I'm saying to you? Sort of like, I love the analogy of, look, you hit a roadblock and you're denied something. So you create that thing, so you progress. It's great, right? I just think that, you know, someone like myself and Tomisin, for example, we're sort of, and Dionne as well, this is what I'm saying to you, we've all just started and we're going, etc. But what I find us all doing is bringing people with us already, if you know what I mean. And I think that in effect can make you a gatekeeper, because if it's the case that, you know, somebody else's career is progressing because of you,
of course,
do you understand? Like what Noel's saying, spot on, because eventually you're going to come to a point where that influence and that power is going to become, do you understand, on levels with the people we've been asking from, if you know what I mean. And then everybody you've been helping automatically gets catapulted to that level as well.
Wake up, purse rascal, you. Cup. Speak what we feel. Cup, purse rascal.
Alack, what a heinous sin is it in me to be ashamed to be my father's child.
Don't you mention my dad?
What is her name?
You don't need to know.
You love her more than you love us. Get out.
I can pick up the rest of my things.
No, you will never come back into this house again.
Dad.
So, I mean, recently Reggie Yates had his show on BBC that looked into the renaissance that's happening in Hollywood for Black Americans. What's happening over here? Because we're talking about becoming gatekeepers, but you can't gatekeep nothing. So you need to have a movement. I mean, I'm seeing a lot of creative talent coming, British black creative talent coming through. But what is going on the ground, and is there something to gatekeep?
I wrote to 9 agencies because I wasn't signed basically, and I wanted to find an agent. So I wrote to 9 agencies in this country, and one person sent me back an email saying, "Thank you for writing this email. Never write here again. We don't accept. Yeah, we don't accept your application." And
well, damn, that actually hit me. You know, I'm like, whoa.
Everything I've played out, all the festivals, all the wins I've won. You know, all these 30 awards. They didn't care about it. But I was in Los Angeles in February, and this agent from CAA saw my short film. He was waiting for me afterwards, and he came to me and said, "Tomisin, I want to sign you." Wow. Like literally,
love it.
And I thought he was lying. I thought yeah, you know, it was a black guy, you know, in his early 30s. I was like, you know, so I had to look him up on Google to actually realize this guy worked for CAA, and I didn't have to sell him anything. All he saw was a short film, and that was enough for him to say, "Tomisin, I believe in you. I see what kinds of films you want to make. I want to help you get there." And that's after like years of writing to agencies here, and I realized we are not growing in this country. You know, there's no future plan for us, and I think America are way ahead of us.
It's interesting because I got my US agent as well before I got UK agent. My US agent introduced me to UK agents and set up meetings. So
unbelievable.
Yeah, it's and you know, I feel like the UK is always trying to catch up. It's like, you know, the same with actors, right? Like a lot of them are going over to the US, blowing up in the US, and then the UK is like, scrambling to get them. So I don't know whether it's because we're a smaller industry and it's just everyone's got their hands tied with so many things, but I feel like the UK is always playing catch up with, you know, the talent's going.
I mean, I think now they've just seen the lack of kind of diverse programs, and they are racing to try and catch up to get some of the broadcast, some of the viewers back that have gone to these other platforms. So I think suddenly now they're seeing that there's value, financial value, and that means that it helps all of us, but it's quite...
But that's the they. What about us?
It is they.
What about the us that are on the ground?
Well, from within that, hopefully we can continue it, because otherwise it could be a flash in the pan. That's the thing. Fashionable.
Do we have the groundwork, the framework, the infrastructure starting?
Yeah, definitely.
I would say so. And actually, what I was gonna say, right, was that the way I see it is a bit like music, right? You get Stormzy, you get AJ Tracy, you get etc. All, you know, the rappers, but the success isn't based on the consumption from this country. You see what I'm saying to you? It's all the consumers in Europe, and maybe if it stretches to, you know, the States, that will get them where they are. So I see myself as the same. Like if I make a film, with all due respect, no disrespect to the UK, but I'm not trying to distribute just in the UK. That's a waste of my time.
Of course.
Do you get where I'm coming from? Like I'm trying to tell a story about this, like Scorsese did. He went to Brooklyn in this place to tell a story about American Italian gangsters. It doesn't get more specific than that. So I want to tell my story about a Ghanaian and Nigerian dominated area in Southeast London on the edge, which is by Kent. Do you see what I'm saying? And then someone in Colombia can watch it and say, oh, I connected to the story. So I feel like, you know, I feel like in terms of the question I was asked, Noel called me in after I finished making haircut.
That's what I'm saying. I was about to say.
You are connected.
That's what I was about to say. Straight away he got me in and said.
It's about getting people like, I'm not waiting now. Oh yeah, there's a director who's just done Top Boy. I mean, Noughts and Crosses and whatnot. We were looking around. When the haircut was just done, we had Koby in for a meeting, like straight away. You know what I mean? On the Bulletproof, you come to the Bulletproof film set, it's like Wakanda. Like me and Ash don't play. Like we're not playing. From the crew, cast, like we're not playing. Like we made it a mandate as like, if there is not enough people of colour in the show, you know what I mean? Not just because we're trying to, like you said, not just because we're trying to do it, that can actually do the job, then the show's not happening. And I promise you, that first day, we were just like, we literally were walking around, be like, what kind of thing ever? And people were making, because that's how we wanted to do it. Sparks, and not just men, women as well. Do you know what I mean? Like we're very adamant with our show, and that's, you know, we didn't have any female directors this year, which was a bit of an annoyance, but.
Guys, make sure you.
Yeah. No, we didn't. Which wasn't an annoyance for me, but. You know, it just worked out that way, but we make a conscious effort to make sure that it is a very equal as much as it can be crew, you know, and cast.
Because like, if we look at successful white directors, writers, etc., okay, I'm going to use one example, David Yates, who's like a mentor of mine, so I could comfortably use his name. He works in the States, you know, he's one of 5 British directors to, you know, to gross over however much at box office, but that didn't happen based on activity in the UK, right? I think it's all about, okay, we're a group of people empowering each other, etc., to be a good product, but then you project that elsewhere. I don't think it's about, you know, trying to get into a system in the UK where people in the UK will watch your stuff. Do you get where I'm coming from? I think we, as a group of people, need to just obviously, like, Noel will make something, for example, Tomisin will make something, Dionne will make something. We're all British filmmakers, but essentially we're connecting elsewhere, right? And that might attract me to work in the States, you know what I mean? Because people in the States have watched my work. But if you want me to be honest, I'm trying to go back to Africa. If you want me to be honest, I'm trying to take a little detour. No one sees coming. I'm trying to go to Africa.
And you guys, Tomisin, you know, and you, Koby, and everyone actually, Nollywood. Is that a swear word, or is it something that...
Oh, you could talk about Nollywood, but
no, I'm just saying, is it in regards to, well, we're all lumped under...
No, not necessarily.
So what's Ghana's...
Yeah, there's Kuma Wood, you know what I mean, that's in Kumasi, you know, don't get twisted, it's there.
Okay.
I've done my research.
Nollywood.
No, of course not, but that's what I said, that's my thing. No, hear me out.
Nollywood is still
and I love that you're saying that, because you're setting yourself up, right? Listen to this, right? My thing is, no, you're setting yourself, listen, hear what I'm about to say, you're setting yourself up, right?
I'm a Trini, I don't even get involved.
I don't want to go and join an industry, I'm trying to create one.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying to you? I'm not trying to slip into a system that's already
trying
working.
to lead the charge.
Do you understand? I'm trying to go, and don't get me twisted, I don't want to disrespect Ghana. There is an industry there, right? But what I want to do is go there and be a part of getting it on a certain level, which I know I can do. Do you get where I'm coming from? So that's why I said I might want to skirt to Africa, because I see a project there rather than being a jobbing director and going to serve other people. Do you understand? I feel like we can create our own service and bring what we're talking about here and doing here in this country, do with Ghanaians. You see what I'm saying? So I'm thinking...
For me, that name, Nollywood, is difficult for me.
Yeah,
it wasn't coined by us. It was coined by white people.
Oh, there you go.
You know, so for me, I call it the new Nigerian cinema.
Wow.
And I think that is something that I think it's an industry that is basically dictated by us. Because Nollywood, I respect what they've done, but I know Nigerian artists that don't even like the name.
Wow.
That's what I was
It's a name that was given to them by people that just say, oh, they're black, they're in Nigeria, Nollywood. Oh, it's like Hollywood, they're Nollywood.
Oh, I'll get you.
So it's I mean, it's a name that I think we're tied to now, unfortunately, but it's a name that I know loads of Nigerian artists don't identify with, because it doesn't convey who they are.
But Nigerians made it what it is. Nigerians made it the success of what it is.
No,
so
absolutely,
I think you know Nollywood can definitely take credit for Nigerians. Sorry, can take in fact all the credit for making it what it is. Just because a system was enforced upon them doesn't mean they just accepted it to be below par. I think it's top 3 industries in the world, right? Am I making that up? You know, like so the Nigerians did that. You know, so
of course. And
that's
I think it's inspiring because you know I know. Nigerian artists who are just making incredible work out there. And I think for me, you know, I make films in the diaspora, but all my films are about Nigerians in London. So I mean, I do want to make films there one day. But I think, as you say, I want to go back and impact it. I don't want to. I want to be a part of that industry, but you know, take what I've learned from here and then take it back home.
Exactly.
Home is where the heart is, I would say, and home is where really I'm leading towards. You know, because I mean, I will never really be accepted here as a black British filmmaker, because I'm black British, but I'm Nigerian British as well. So, and my films are in Yoruba, which is a Nigerian language, and so really, you know, it's hard enough being a black British filmmaker, but imagine being a Nigerian British filmmaker.
So what's your process before you begin a project, and are you still studious? Do you read books? What shows? Where's your inspiration come from?
Exactly what you just said. Read books. Like before I made Haircut, right, I had this directing actors book. I'm going to give away the secrets. It's called Directing Actors by Judith Weston, right? It's probably the most influential book I've read on working with actors, and there's certain things that have come out on set which has worked a treat, right? I literally had the book stuck in my face for like 3 weeks before the day, you know, literally leading up to the day before we're about to go and shoot, right? I'm watching loads of TV shows, loads of films, and I didn't have money at the time anyway, so I was locked in my house. So I had to do all these things, and I think, I personally believe that's why Haircut is enjoyed and so much, and people connect to it, because I was able to draw from loads of different resources to pour into this one, you know, thing. So I'm always studious. I think process-wise, you have to study, in my opinion. Like, you have to, it doesn't matter, because I'm writing stuff about things I know, but you still have to explore yourself. You see what I'm saying to you? You sort of have to put yourself through the test by reading other things and seeing how your spirit reacts to it.
Also, something that's helpful for me is just daily routine of writing every day, like every morning for me, because I have to be in the morning. So for me, I don't get people who kind of just wait for the inspiration, because it doesn't happen like that for me. I have to kind of sit every day and kind of work and like pull it out of myself. So it helps to just have a routine where I do my 4 or 5 hours every morning, writing every day.
Is everybody here a writer-director?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how does that?
I write every day as well. I also read consistently. I'm inspired by everything. Like I'll be on the tube and see something and be like, but before I get off at the next stop, I created a whole story and I'm trying to get notes down in my phone. I read books that people wouldn't expect me to read, and all the time, just to find new things. I'm reading this book at the minute about leftover women in China. About, you know, the socio-economic impact about women who are 26 or above suddenly are not desirable to men in China if they're educated. If they're employed and educated, they're not desirable, because A women want B men and B women want C. You know what I mean? Yeah. So you're left with D men and A women, and I'm just like, it blows my mind that you wouldn't want a smart, educated woman. So that's their country.
That applies.
And it's different.
So, for example, do you know what I mean? I saw that on the shelf. I was like, oh, I'm going to read that.
Yeah.
And I read that, and I've all these film ideas, and some of which I'm tackling, some of which I've brought in Chinese writers to write with me, or you know what I mean? So I'm inspired by everything all the time.
So have you ever experienced a lull in your career? And how did you feel that lull? How did you feel that gap? Like a break in your career where you're not getting any work. Maybe you're new to the game, so you haven't experienced it yet. But
now.
To be fair, kind of now. You know.
Okay. Well, while you're here now, are we stopping you from work?
Yes.
Yeah. When I collected my BAFTA in 2009.
What a lie.
But here's the interesting part. I hadn't worked for over a year, and I had no money. None. Like, my bank account was literally minus, and I hadn't worked in over a year, and I couldn't sniff an acting job. Nobody wanted to hire me as a director or writer, because at that point adulthood hadn't come out, so I'd only done kidulthood, and everyone thought that's what he does, and consequently I was doing another one, but I was only doing another one because I'd written all this other stuff after kidulthood. 4321, was already starting to do Fast Girls with Damien. No one was interested. No one was interested at all. They were just like, you see the thing where you swung the bat, do that again. And I was like, I don't want to do that, I'm done. Consequently, no work, nothing. I had to write a second one. So yeah, at that point, perception is crazy, isn't it? Because everyone see me on the stage in my suit, picking up that thing, Shia LaBeouf giving it to me. No money, no work for over a year. And I had a 3-month-old baby.
What was the gap
after that? Sorry.
That was because you shoot it the year before it comes out, right?
Yeah.
So it was shot like 18 months before it came out. It had been out in the August previous. So then it was still September, October, November, December, January, February. I still hadn't worked. So I hadn't worked for like 15 months. But when I won that, I was on set like 2 weeks after.
Okay. I had a period of a few years when I didn't have any directing work, and I was still kind of starting out. So I've been doing lots of kind of continuing drama, and then there was just a period where there were no more blocks. And there wasn't any work that came for a while, and it was a really kind of challenging time because it was kind of like, what happened? Is that the end? And I think that's the thing as freelance, often you don't know when the next job is coming, and so it's just that kind of, who am I if I'm not a director? It was this kind of deep time of, and having to kind of go, I'm still me, it's still all right. And then it was a couple of years, and then something changed in my personal life. I had it was a relative that was sick, and so I needed to be around, and so in a way I think I kind of put a block in a way, because they passed away, and a few months later work started coming.
Wow. So can you tell me what the best piece of advice you've heard since becoming a filmmaker?
Mine's really, really simple. I think it was like Barry Jenkins who said it, and it was just make it personal and work with your friends. For me, those are the two things that, really keep me going.
I mean, I wouldn't say anything I've been told per se, but what I would say is if you think something's going to work, just stick to it, no matter what anybody tells you, because you'll be amazed how many, take your times I've had, and how many, it's not the right time, and et cetera, and those things may be true in the past, but you can create a whole new reality and truth if you just stick to your guns and be prepared to take whatever consequences comes with that.
Know who you're making it for. I always, anytime I'm making something, obviously, I've told very personal stories, and it's always something that is true to me, like both of these guys said, but I also know who I'm trying to make it for. Who am I talking to? Who is like me that will appreciate this, and and don't concern yourself with the people that won't. Like, I know that the Times readers aren't gonna like what I do. So it's not for them. Do you know what I mean? So always know who your audience is.
Mine was, somebody said once, just to do something every day to further your career. So even it's just a little thing, but as long as you just do one thing, and so that it means every day you're gonna keep moving forward or keep trying, because I think sometimes people just kind of go, oh, I'm stuck, I don't know what to do, and they might sit around for a couple of weeks, a couple of months. But it's like, even a little thing, if it's an email to somebody, if it's a phone call, just one little thing that just takes you further every day.
I think mine would be find your voice. I think that's the most important thing, because I spent a lot of time making films that weren't really about me, films that I didn't care about, because I wanted to make French New Wave films, that kind of film. But I realized that your voice is the most important thing, because you're making films that is really about you. That's all you have, really. So I think find your voice, and once you find out, own your voice. Don't be afraid, as you said, don't be afraid of, if someone says, oh, I don't think this works, tell them why it works. Because you know about it. They don't understand that perspective. So I find your voice and own it.
So what are you guys watching, and what have you got coming up next? What's really in,
There's a show called Glow. I don't know if
Yeah.
you've seen Glow. Yeah, Glow is absolutely brilliant. I was watching the second season last night. It's absolutely brilliant. And next, I'm doing my first feature film, which I've been writing for the past 3 years. So, if there's anyone that has money watching this, I'm a writer director. I've won some awards, and
most recently I've watched Chernobyl, I think. That's one of the things I watched most recently. And at the moment I'm doing some TV. I'm doing Block of Grantchester.
Okay.
I'm also watching Glow, and just finished Orange is the New Black season 7, and I am currently writing various TV shows with some myself, some with other writers, and have 2 features which I am planning to direct, which are very different to everything I've done before, because I've decided that I need to do something very, very different in terms of what people wouldn't expect.
What am I watching? I don't really watch much. I'm always working, but I've started Stranger Things season 2. I'm deep in that. I'm on like episode 3. I haven't finished it. What am I working on? Well, the main thing, like Tomisin, I'm writing my debut feature, which hopefully plan to shoot next year. I have 2 television shows I'm working on as well, as sort of like, this is my story, my vision, which is great. You know, one of them has been optioned. I am also working on other TV shows. Like, to be fair, there's just like loads of things developing right now. You know, when you're just like in the midst of it, but yeah.
Okay. Deal.
I'm always really behind with TV, so I've just watched the first season of Fleabag, and I just watched The Dead Don't Die, the Jim Jarmusch film, which I liked. I don't know, it got like a, did anyone see that? Yeah, got a bit of bad reviews, but I liked it. And I'm working on my feature film, Pretty Red Dress, and a TV series as well, sort of developing at the moment.
So everyone's working, good. So what I'm going to ask you to do we've got how many minutes? 10, okay. So come up with a director's treatment for a 5-episode series based on the theme legacy. We need a synopsis, outline and summary, an idea about your leads and co-leads, ideal locations, because we need to feed this back to the actors and crew that we're speaking to later today.
Can it be reality TV?
It can be whatever you want.
Yeah.
Bearing in mind you've got actors and crew to think about, and just a synopsis and outline, kind of like an idea about who your leads would be, and locations, ideal locations.
Well, my lead would be Dami Idris.
Yes. Oh wow, already?
Yeah, very specific.
But you haven't even got the...
There's no time, yeah.
Okay.
So he's the lead. The show, it will be it's a TV show, of course, yeah. TV show.
5 episodes.
5 episodes. So it will be set in 1875.
Oh wow.
And it would follow a young Nigerian man.
Okay.
I might be pitching my own TV show.
He is.
Don't do that.
Let's throw the idea away.
It's a young Nigerian man who travels from Ghana to London in that time, and we see him having to navigate a new space that he's very alien to, and yeah, we see him. Basically, the idea of legacy is his parents were slaves, so he wants to subvert that by basically being a man of importance, and he wants to basically show that all black people aren't slaves, and yeah. So Dami will be the lead. Supporting actresses would be. I have to get back to you on that actually.
Oh, well, I mean, I was going to say this was a collaborative effort,
yeah.
but I don't know.
I agree with Tomisin. I agree with Tomisin.
I feel like this is cheating on you guys' part. Is there anything you guys would like to feed, Shane?
I guess if it was legacy, we'd be looking at the children, great-grandchildren in today's society.
So you'd bring it to modern times?
Yeah, with maybe some flashbacks to that period.
Okay.
So we would have some.
We can have a dual narrative.
Female leads in there.
Okay.
Wumi Musaka would feature.
Wumi, okay.
I love that.
You could have a dual narrative, so you see what's happening there and there, almost, and how the decisions that he made also affect the decisions that.
Okay.
And it's the legacy of the great grandfather to what Wumi's doing now, you know.
So that's Damson and Wumi. So who else?
They're both leads.
They're both leads.
Wumi's she's in the modern part, and he's in the he's in the period part. And it's how their journeys are parallel.
Okay.
And what they go through.
Dionne.
I'm just taking the notes.
I'm just sort of.
What about location?
Ghana. So I think it should all happen in Ghana.
Nigeria?
I don't know how we got to Ghana, but
Nigerian in Ghana.
There's a backstory there, which we'll have to explain.
He left Nigeria because it was too dangerous, and then he came to Ghana.
That wasn't what I had in mind.
And he became a fisherman.
We do see him in Nigeria
on the coast.
by the way.
No, we don't. I'm joking. On the coast of Ghana, fishing, right?
But his dream is to go to Trinidad one day.
Exactly. He sees a ship.
It was all in the 1875.
That's cool.
Live a good life.
Trinidad Express.
And so where we get London, in the brick
In the modern part.
Brexit kind of.
Yeah, in the now.
Exactly.
And her dream is to also go to Trinidad.
So Trinidad's the main goal in this series.
It's called Trinidad, by the way.
Yes,
Trinidad.
I love that.
This is
That's what we should do it, you know.
So we need some actors around these two. Like we've got maybe a few more characters to fill out.
I want to bring Whoopi Goldberg.
You want to bring Whoopi?
Noel's in there. You got to be.
Wait, as Idris's well, they're all related. But as Wumi's mum or Idris's, is she in the modern part or is she in the?
Let's put in the modern part.
Yeah.
Put Noel, so everyone ignored me. I'm gonna say it again. We're gonna put Noel there.
Oh, Noel's in it.
He's gonna be one of the fishermen in Ghana. He's gonna be one of the Ghanaian fishermen that advises our main character to make his way to Trinidad. Yeah, trust me. Just trust me.
But what's the story here? What is actually
told you
it's
the
just
story.
going to Trinidad for real?
So it's basically.
It's called Trinidad.
It's called Trinidad. So basically, he wants to go back home, and his home is.
Ghana.
His home is.
It's Trinidad.
Trinidad.
That's his, yeah.
So Dam's in 1800s.
1875.
He's a Nigerian who's moved to Ghana with goals of moving to Trinidad.
Trinidad, exactly.
Yeah.
And he meets an influential fisherman, Noel, who.
And in the modern times, we've got Wumi,
who's
and got Whoopi Goldberg, and her mum Whoopi Goldberg.
Yeah. And they are direct descendants of Damson and his Trini wife, because he did make it. And they're direct descendants of them, and it's the story of how their lives parallel, even in today's cold, hard Brexit society, how their lives parallel what he went through back in those times there.
But what ties them is family.
Because they're related. They're related.
That's the crux of this whole show, family.
Right.
I know.
Family is about legacy, and it influences who you are ultimately. So Damson's journey of understanding his culture, his identity, as not just a Nigerian man, but a Ghanaian man and a Trinidad man. So it's all
future
about
Trini.
But it's all tied to family.
And what is in Trinidad that's the gold?
Oh, back in those days, a lot of stuff, man.
Elaborate.
Well, I did Who Do You Think You Are, right? And my family were slaves, and they were actually slaves, and they were involved in the what do you call it? When you get the revolution and whatnot. So I don't remember all the dates, but around that time there, just say that.
Okay, so Damson's pretty much a rebel, possibly, trying to fight the colonisers and the slavers. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, we can let the actors figure out all that stuff.
So actors are playing this?
Yes.
We're gonna ask them to find the character Bibles of these.
I think Wumi needs to have, what's his name? Ben Barnes, a white boyfriend, and the mum don't like, Whoopi don't like it.
Ben Barnes.
Yeah.
But how does that? Oh, okay, because parallel back in those days.
She's in the modern. Wumi's in the modern time, and Ben Barnes is her boyfriend. Okay. Do you know what I mean? And weirdly, my character's still alive, and he don't like it. He fishes in the tent. He does not like it. He's like, if your great grandfather could see this, he would turn in his grave in Trinidad while drinking rum.
So you do the message part.
Yeah.
Okay.
But what times is time travel? There's time travel in the story.
Yeah. Yes.
There is time travel.
That's how I got there.
Damson does exactly.
Damson
is able to travel
to modern day.
Yeah,
exactly.
So hold on, this is a sci-fi series now.
Yes.
Yeah, but secretly,
you don't know. You don't know. It's a twist.
Yeah.
It's a twist. There's a
explain this.
There's a female. There's a female antagonist that we haven't met yet.
In Damson's time.
Who Adedayo is gonna play.
Okay.
Right.
Yes.
She's gonna come and she's after this time machine that's gonna bring
That's what I'm
Damson.
saying.
Yeah.
Right into where he's supposed to go.
That's what I'm
She's
saying.
basically knows how to use the time machine. So that's the main sort of like conflict.
So Naomi Harris, which part is she? She's
Where's Naomi Harris?
Naomi Harris. She's so what?
Let's add into the next.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
She created the time machine.
That's right.
So she has the power and the knowledge to actually.
Can I just say
Naomi Harris created the time machine, but the weird thing about it is Glenn Close said she invented it. Now she took it from us and said that she invented it, when actually it was Naomi Harris that
I feel like
invented
you're not
it.
taking a mickey now.
No,
you said it was light-hearted.
Exactly. This is a good story.
What I said was, I need a synopsis and a quick
Yeah,
summary.
this is a fantastic.
Okay, what's the tagline?
See the
Trinidad.
series.
Legacy.
What's the tagline?
Legacy is
dreams of going to Trinidad after meeting Noel, who tells him of the bigger plan.
That's a long tagline.
I know. I'm still going. You know when I'm trying to curve it, but I'm still going. I'm like, yeah, that's it.
And I was writing, it's like, no, this is
this ain't gonna work. It ain't gonna work.
Ghana and the steel band.
What?
Yeah, because Ghana, but then steel drum. Yeah.
Trini, I love that.
That's the log line.
That's the yeah. From Ghana to the steel. From Ghana to the steel.
I love how you say Ghana with it.
Ghana.
to the steel band.
To the steel band.
Trust me.
Exactly.
Some what's the fish called? I forgot what it's called.
What fish?
That's the good tilapia.
So you want tilapia to the steel band?
Yeah, trust me. You have to.
Yeah.
Okay.
And in the future, that's the first thing I say to them. Don't trust the fish. Do you know what I mean? I've travelled 300 years to tell you.
What's on the poster? Don't trust the fish.
The fish are dying out. The fish are dying out.
The fish are dying
The last
out.
couple tilapias.
Yeah.
You have to hold it for yourself.
We drop a hero. Save the tilapia. Save the world.
Family is the main thing.
I feel like
Where's your family?
Family, let's not forget family.
Family and legacy is the thing. I mean, I don't even know where to go with this, so thanks for giving me more homework.
Good.
I thought you directors would give me, you know, make it easy for me.
This will give you a wealth of ideas there.
This is supposed to be a director's summary.
If I see this on
We're done?
TV.
Oh, so there's still time. Okay, we're done. Thank you. That is it. Thank you so
I'm
much.
going to give you my good ideas. People are watching.
Exactly. If you see any of these ideas.
Thank you very much.